the owner and general manager of the Dallas Cowboys. It is Jerry Jones. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, Kevin, Corey, Mike, and thank you for letting me come on here a little earlier. I hope that hadn't inconvenienced you or the listeners, but it really helps me. I'm getting on a plane, and they need to take off, and so these time slots are hard to get to.
I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal right here and right now. Anytime you want to hop on the show, we will do our best to accommodate it. How about that?
That's great. I'll take you up on that.
Perfect.
We've done it.
So, Jerry, this game has seemed to get a little bit more juice as Mike McCarthy's press conference yesterday talked about we're going to Washington to win, and that has become a big guarantee around the world. I don't know if that's exactly what he meant, but you've talked about how you kind of like extra juice on the game. Can you talk about going to Washington now with the national media talking about a Dallas Cowboys guarantee?
Yeah, absolutely, and I don't get hung up on the bit about the guarantee. That should be his attitude. He expects to win. He thinks we will win, and I expect that. I would be shocked if he couldn't make that kind of statement. And anybody with common sense knows that you can't tell whether or not you're going to or not. Only God knows that. But having said that, I like his attitude. I'll tell you what. He's raring and ready. He's been pinned up, and that's reflected in his demeanor as well as how he's articulating his feelings.
Well, and Jerry, shortly after that, Dak Prescott expressed the same, hey, now we're accountable to what our coach just said. Amari Cooper came on with GVAG Nation later in the day and pretty much reiterated the same thing. Do you like I know you talked earlier about how Hard Knocks has kind of it keeps the guys focused because there's so many cameras, there's so much attention to them. Do you think when a head coach says something like that it kind of turns the focus to the job?
Well, we as a franchise, we as the Cowboys, we put it out there, and that's and we know we do. We ask folks to look at us, be interested in us, follow us. We know a bunch of people look at us because they'd like to see us lose. That's sport. That creates the excitement, the reason I'm in it, and the reason we are engaged. And so the answer is yes. I like all of this kind of additional color to the interest in the game. And, of course, you really don't have to color this game. This has everything going for it, much at stake. It's right here at the right time. This is the fourth quarter that we're in of the year. Football is at its absolute apex, and we're sitting here basically fighting, literally, for the marbles. And we need to win this game.
Now, in addition to everything on the line in this particular game, which, by the way, you can hear right here on 105.3 The Fan, I know you'll appreciate that plug, Jerry, is historically, this is a huge rivalry. I know a lot of Cowboys fans have turned most of their ire on the Eagles in recent years, but I was hoping you could tell us, going all the way back to when you bought the team, did you hate Washington the most because at the time they were so damn good?
I know this. We didn't win but one football game. Jimmy Johnson was our coach the very first year, 1989. And the only game we won, which was against the ultimate world champions, was against, at that time, the Washington Redskins. When we won that game, we stayed there and flew back separate from the team. And we drove up the alley and drove up by the Capitol and drove down around all of Washington, just excited about doing what Nate Newton had said we need to do, and that's give them some capital punishment. And so, boy, we had a great celebration. At that time, Prince Bandar of Saudi Arabia was there. He was the ambassador to the United States, and He wanted to celebrate. He was the greatest fan in the world, and he wanted to just savor that victory, and that was the one and the only victory the first year that we were involved.
When it comes to people celebrating with you, who's been your most favorite to celebrate with?
Oh, I think, Jean, my wife, has never missed a game. I have never missed a game, of course. But our family, and then of course the immediacy. Most of the people I hang with are involved in this football team, and the players are obvious, the coaches are obvious, but the people that make it go, the people that are head of, if you will, our marketing and all of the operations of the Cowboys. We have over 600 employees. And those are who I like to be around with, and that's I will say that they're the ones you want to be with when you're down, because these losses are hard to take. But boy, when you have that victory, and believe you me, there's not one that doesn't feel like you've won a small Super Bowl in the NFL. You see this year how close the games are and how important a victory is.
So, Jerry, it's kind of shocking to me watching Washington play on television on how many empty seats there are, just because when I lived there in 2007 playing for the Nationals, there was still a lot of hysteria around the Washington football team and what they could possibly do. And now you watch them play, whether it's Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, you think for sure those would be sellouts, and there's a lot of empty seats there. I'm assuming this is a sellout because so many Cowboy fans have bought up all of those seats. Has it gotten to the point where Washington is one of the biggest Cowboy areas now? And then if you want to talk about how the Washington fan base has just kind of slowed down over time.
We have always sold more Cowboy memorabilia, hats, caps, T-shirts. We've always had our greatest fan support, positive, coming from Washington. And that's outside the Dallas area. Washington is where we have the most, outside the Texas area. Washington is where we have the most support of all when you come to all the things you might count. But there's a massive interest in pro football in Washington. And there's certainly a great interest in the NFL, and of course, what you're seeing has just been a little diminished, for whatever the reasons, interest in the games. That's perking up, though, and they're beginning to, with the wins they've had here lately. You'll see it out there, and it wouldn't surprise me to see a full stadium at all.
Jerry, we saw that Micah Parsons had a little hip flare-up over yesterday, kind of was limited yesterday in practice. Do you have any concerns about him playing on Sunday, and what's his importance to, the ultimate idea of what this defense is on a weekly basis?
Well, I don't, on a personal basis, have concern about it. It's soreness. It's from his strength and conditioning, and I think he would be the first to tell you he could be out there right now. So it's one that doesn't have that kind of concern, his availability. And, of course, his ability to put pressure from any point on the field, his ability to contain if you will, an excellent move-around quarterback, spine, if you will. Those kinds of nuances that he brings to the table. But make no mistake about him, we've got to have him out there exerting pressure. And he does, just by the virtue of him. I remember Ernie Zampese, the great offensive coordinator, pointed to the Charles Haley. And he said, I've been trying to be a coordinator against Charles Haley most of my career when he was at the Rams as Zampese and at the Chargers. And he said, you put that guy at the top of the list. He's a disruptor. Any offensive coordinator has to find him and account for him and design for him. And that's what we've got in a guy like Micah Parsons. Now, the other thing is we've got a couple of others out there that have problems for the coordinator as well, and Lawrence and Gregory.
Is there any chance you're getting on the plane right now?
I'm sitting here by the plane waiting because I didn't want to get in the noise and stepping on it. Yes.
I appreciate that very much. And I wanted to, and you mentioned the trio coming back on defense that we're excited about. On offense, what is your confidence level that Tony Pollard will be good to roll on Sunday?
I think he's a game time. And the issue is how he tolerates the injury is not one that's long-term of the nature of his mobility in the sense of a longer look. But it's something worth noting. It will be a game time.
Hey, Jerry, I did want to go back to Micah real quick because I saw that he got a copyright for the quote, "The lion is always hungry." And I'm always curious as like how do you support players when they want to go into these off-field endeavors? Do you say, you know what, let's wait till off season? And what kind of support do you and the Cowboys brands provide for the players?
Well, first of all, I'm not at all concerned about him or his people, his person or representatives working on things for him during the season. I view those types of things to be inspirational to your play on the field, all of them. I've always thought that the crowds at practice inspired rather than distracted. And so I feel the same thing about anything that would call attention to the interest in how he's performing. That, to me, translates to responsibility, or it translates to achievement when you're physically getting prepared. You want people to see you at your best when you ask them, hey, look at me.
Now, since you guys are like imminently about to get ready to head out to Washington, I'm really curious, and you referenced the old Washington mascot earlier. They've been the Washington football team. Are you good with, and do you think the league is cool if they stayed the Washington football team, or do you think the league or yourself would prefer they pick like a more traditional mascot?
Yes, to the first alternative. I think they will do a satisfactory job to me as far as what they ultimately do. But this is a good name.
So, Jerry, I have another question for you about what's going on kind of in the world of football. I'm sure you probably know who Quinn Ewers is, the 5-star kid that was from South Lake Carroll, went to Ohio State, and is choosing probably a Texas school to come play the rest of his college football at. And there's a lot of reports on how much UT is going to possibly pay him. Not the school, but the people that support UT. You're a big Arkansas fan, a big college football fan. My question is, can you, owners, general managers, are there restrictions from you guys that you can't get into kind of that NIL business because you're part of the NFL, and it could be some sort of like, I don't know if collusion's the right word, but you have to stay away from where college football is heading, and that is somewhat paying the best players to go to certain schools?
Well, I haven't thought about it, and I mean it. I really have not thought about it. We are certainly not in areas that the NFL is involved in. We can and don't get interested in a player until their team is graduating, and so it's not of interest. I'm interested as a sports fan and interested to the dynamics relative to competition in college, and I'm a little pragmatic there. I think it'll ultimately work. It's such a significant part of our country's makeup to think about our great collegiate programs. And I think they'll work through the financial aspect or the newness of compensating players while they're in school. And it is not a great concern of mine. I'll tell you, the thing that was the biggest change that I've seen is the ability of college players, to transfer between schools like they do now. And that was a huge change. And that really reshuffled the deck a little bit when it comes to competition between your top schools for the best talent.
Now, Jerry, we love talking football with you. We love talking all range of sports topics with you. I know you're going to have to go in just a second. Our audience is clamoring to know, so I have to ask, is there any chance you can tell us more about your plane and who's going to be hopping on the plane with you?
Well, no, I really won't get into that, but point is that I am going to Washington for sure, and like I say, but we'll be there to greet them when they hit the door. So I'm talking to our players and our staff. So just really excited about being up there this weekend and being ready to go Sunday.
And in the vein of Mike McCarthy, are you going up to Washington to win this football game?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Love it. Thank you
Thanks,
very
Jerry.
much, good sir. Thanks for taking the time. Have a good flight. We'll talk with you next week.
You guys, let's get them.